In the rugged fjords of Viking-era Scandinavia, Torvald Ironhand, chieftain of the Bjornsson clan, leads a daring raid on the rival village of Skalvik, trusting his blood brother Gunnar Blackfang to have his back. But when an ambush leaves 5 men dead and whispers of betrayal point to Gunnar, Torvald faces a heart-wrenching choice: honor the oath they swore as boys, or heed the clan's cries for blood. As Nordheim's shadow looms, plotting war, Torvald must hunt his brother, uncover the truth, and unite a fractured clan before their enemies burn Fjord to ashes in a saga of loyalty, revenge, and redemption. Chapter 1. The Oath of Brothers. The wind howled across the jagged cliffs of Fjord, carrying the salt of the sea and the bite of winter. Torvald Ironhand stood at the edge of the fjord, his boots sinking into the frost-crusted grass, his breath clouding in the cold air. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with a beard the color of fire, and scars that told stories of battles won. His axe, heavy and notched from years of use, hung at his side, its handle worn smooth by his grip. At 32, Torvald was chieftain of the Bjornsson clan, respected and feared, but today his heart was heavy. He stared at the longship bobbing in the icy water below, its dragon prow cutting through the mist. Tomorrow, they would sail for Skalvik, a rival village rich with grain and silver. And Torvald felt the weight of what was to come. Beside him stood Gunnar Blackfang, his blood brother, lean and sharp-eyed, with hair as dark as the ravens that circled above. Gunnar's sword was sheathed, but his hand rested on its hilt, a habit from years of fighting side by side. They had been boys together, raised in the same hall, their fathers sworn allies. When they were 15, they had cut their palms and mixed their blood, swearing an oath under the eyes of Odin to stand as brothers, to share glory and pain, to die for each other if the gods demanded. That oath had held through raids, feuds, and the death of Torvald's father, making him chieftain. But now, as Torvald looked at Gunnar, he saw something new in his brother's flicker of shadow, a secret kept. "We sail at dawn," Torvald said, his voice low, rough from shouting orders to his men. "Skalvik will be ours by nightfall. Their walls are weak, their warriors fewer. We'll take their stores and be gone before their allies come." Gunnar nodded, his face unreadable. "A good plan, Torvald. Quick, clean. The men are ready." He paused, glancing at the longship, where warriors were loading barrels of dried fish and sharpening blades. But Skalvik's chieftain, Harald, is no fool. "He'll have scouts watching the coast," Torvald grunted, his eyes narrowing. "Let them watch. We'll hit hard and fast. By the time Harald rallies his men, we'll be halfway back to Fjord with their silver." He clapped Gunnar's shoulder, feeling the tension in his brother's frame. "You worry too much, brother. We've done this before. The gods favor us." Gunnar's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "The gods favor the bold, but they also test us. Be careful, Torvald. Pride can blind a man." Torvald laughed, a deep sound that echoed off the cliffs. "Pride? It's not pride, Gunnar. It's strength. The Bjornsson clan is strong because we fight together, because we trust each other." He looked at Gunnar, his eyes steady. "I trust you, brother. Always have." Gunnar met his gaze, but only for a moment, before looking away, out to the sea. "And you," he said, his voice soft, almost lost in the wind. Torvald didn't notice the slight tremble in Gunnar's hand, the way his fingers tightened on his sword's hilt. The village of Fjord sprawled below, a cluster of longhouses with thatched roofs, their smoke rising into the gray sky. Women tended fires, children ran through the mud, and warriors gathered by the shore, their voices loud with talk of the raid. Torvald's wife, Sigrid, stood outside their hall, her blonde braid swinging as she handed out cloaks to the men. She was strong, fierce, with a tongue sharper than any blade, and Torvald loved her for it. She caught his eye and nodded, her face calm but her eyes worried. She knew raids were dangerous, but she also knew Torvald was born for this. He smiled at her, a promise to return. The longhouse was warm that night, filled with the smell of roasted boar and ale. Torvald sat at the head of the table, Sigrid at his side, Gunnar across from him. The clan's warriors filled the benches, their laughter loud, their cups raised to Odin and Thor. Torvald stood, his voice cutting through the noise. "Tomorrow, we sail for Skalvik," he said, his words strong, steady. "We'll take their grain, their silver, their pride. We'll show them the Bjornsson clan is not to be crossed. To victory," the men roared, slamming their cups on the table. But Torvald noticed Gunnar's was slower to rise, his eyes fixed on the fire. Torvald sat, leaning toward him. "What's eating you, brother? You're quiet tonight." Gunnar shrugged, forcing a grin, just thinking of the fight. "Harold's men won't go down easy. They never do," Torvald said, clapping his back. "But we're better. You and me, together, like always." Gunnar nodded, but his smile didn't reach his eyes, and Torvald felt a pang of unease, quickly buried under the noise of the feast. As the night wore on, the hall grew louder, the men singing songs of battle and glory. Sigrid leaned close to Torvald, her voice low. "Watch Gunnar," she said. "He's not himself. Something's wrong." Torvald frowned, glancing at his brother, who was laughing with a warrior but looking past him, toward the door. "He's just nervous," Torvald said. "Raids make any man edgy." Sigrid's eyes narrowed. "Not Gunnar. He's never nervous." "Be careful, Torvald." He kissed her forehead, brushing off her words, but they stuck with him as he lay in bed that night, Sigrid's warmth beside him. The wind howled outside, and he thought of the oath he and Gunnar had sworn, their blood mixing in the dirt. He trusted Gunnar with his life, but Sigrid's warning gnawed at him. A splinter in his mind. At dawn, the longship was ready, its oars creaking as the men climbed aboard. Torvald stood at the prow, his axe at his side, the sea stretching before him like a promise. Gunnar was behind him, his sword sharp, his face calm but distant. The men rowed, their chants rising over the waves, and Fjord faded into the mist. Skalvik was a day's sail, and Torvald felt the fire of battle in his blood, the thrill of what was to come. The sea was rough, the waves slapping the ship's hull, but the men were strong, their arms steady. Torvald moved among them, checking ropes, sharpening blades, his voice loud with encouragement. Gunnar stayed at the stern, his eyes on the horizon, his hand never leaving his sword. Torvald noticed but said nothing, telling himself it was just the raid, the weight of what they were about to do. As night fell, they anchored near a rocky cove, hidden from Skalvik scouts. Torvald gathered the men, his voice low. "We strike at dawn," he said. "Fast, hard, no mercy. We take their stores and leave their hall in flames." Gunnar leads the second group, hitting their flank. "We meet at the granary and sail before noon." The men nodded, their faces grim. "Ready?" Gunnar's eyes met Torvald's, and for a moment, something passed between them, a shadow, a question. Torvald pushed it aside. They were brothers, bound by blood, by oath. Nothing could break that. But as he slept on the ship, the waves rocking beneath him, Torvald dreamed of fire, of a blade in the dark, of Gunnar's face, twisted with a smile that wasn't his. He woke with a start, his hand on his axe, the cold air sharp in his lungs. Gunnar was awake, standing at the ship's edge, staring into the dark. Torvald watched him, Sigrid's warning loud in his mind, but he said nothing. The raid was coming, and he needed his brother. The stars faded, and dawn broke, gray and cold. The longship moved silently toward Skalvik, its dragon prow cutting through the mist. Torvald gripped his axe, his heart steady but heavy. The oath of brothers held him, but the shadow in Gunnar's eyes lingered, a crack in the bond they'd sworn to keep. Skalvik waited, and with it, the truth of what was to come. Chapter 2. The raid on Skalvik longship sliced through the icy waves, its dragon prow piercing the dawn mist as it neared Skalvik's rocky shore. Torvald Ironhand stood at the helm, his axe gripped tight, the cold air stinging his face. His red beard glistened with frost, and his eyes scanned the coastline, sharp and steady. The Bjornsson clan's warriors rode in rhythm, their chants low, their breath clouding in the chill. Behind Torvald, Gunnar Blackfang crouched near the stern, his dark hair tied back. His sword hand steady, but his gaze distant, fixed on the horizon. The village of Skalvik lay ahead, its wooden walls barely visible through the fog. A prize ripe for the taking, but Torvald felt a knot in his gut, Sigrid's warning echoing. Watch, Gunnar. Something's wrong. The sea was rough, the waves slapping the hull, but the men were strong, their arms pulling hard against the current. Torvald moved among them, his voice a low growl. Keep steady, lads. We hit the shore, we hit hard. No hesitation. Skalvik's grain and silver are ours by noon. The men nodded, their faces grim, their axes and swords glinting in the weak light. Gunnar joined him, his steps sure, but his eyes avoiding Torvald's flanks ready. He said, his voice flat. We'll cut through their east side, draw their warriors. You take the granary. Torvald clapped his shoulder, feeling the tension in Gunnar's frame. Like old times, brother, in and out, with their riches in our hands. Gunnar's lips twitched, not quite a smile, and he turned away, checking his men's weapons. Torvald watched him, the knot in his gut tightening. The oath they'd sworn as boys' blood mixed under Odin's gaze held them together, but Sigrid's words gnawed at him. He pushed the thought down. This was a raid, not a time for doubt. The long ship grounded on the pebbled shore, its hull scraping stone. Torvald leaped off first, his boots crunching, his axe raised. The men followed, silent now, their faces painted with ash for stealth. Skalvik's walls loomed through the mist, wooden and weathered, with gaps where storms had torn planks loose. Torvald signaled, splitting the group. He led the main force to the granary, while Gunnar took 10 men to the east, to draw out Harald's warriors. The plan was simple: strike fast, burn what they couldn't carry, and sail before allies could arrive. Torvald's group crept through the fog, their steps muffled by wet grass. The village was quiet, its longhouses dark, smoke rising from a few chimneys. Torvald's heart pounded, the thrill of the raid burning in his blood. He reached the granary, a squat building near the center, its door unguarded. He nodded to Bjorn, a burly warrior with a scarred face, who smashed the lock with his axe. The door swung open, revealing sacks of grain, barrels of mead, and a chest of silver ingots glinting in the torchlight. Torvald grinned. Load it up, he whispered. Quick. The men worked fast, hauling sacks to the ship, their breath heavy in the cold. Torvald kept watch, his axe ready, his eyes scanning for movement. The village was too quiet, the silence wrong. Harald was no fool, his scouts should have spotted them by now. Torvald's grip tightened, his unease growing. Where was Gunnar? The flank attack should have started, drawing Harald's men east, but no shouts. No clash of steel broke the stillness. A scream shattered the quiet, sharp and sudden, from the east. Torvald's head snapped toward it, his heart lurching. Gunnar, he muttered, signaling his men to stay put. He ran toward the sound, his axe raised, the fog swallowing his steps. The village woke, shouts rising, torches flaring in the dark. He reached the eastern wall, where Gunnar's group was supposed to strike, and found chaos bodies on the ground, Bjornsson men, their throats cut, their eyes wide in death. Gunnar stood in the center, his sword bloody, his face pale, surrounded by Skalvik warriors. Gunnar, Torvald roared, charging forward. The Skalvik men turned, their spears raised, but Torvald's axe was faster, cleaving through one man's shoulder, then another's chest. Blood sprayed, hot and wet, and the warriors fell back, shouting for Harold. Gunnar spun, his eyes meeting Torvald's, and for a moment, Torvald saw it guilt, sharp and raw, in his brother's gaze. What happened? Torvald demanded, grabbing Gunnar's arm. Ambush, Gunnar said, his voice tight. They were waiting, knew we were coming. He yanked free, pointing east. More are coming. We need to move. Torvald's mind raced. An ambush meant someone had warned Skalvik, but how? His men were loyal, hand-picked. Only Gunnar knew the plan in full. Sigrid's warning flashed again, but Torvald shoved it aside. To the ship, he ordered, pulling Gunnar with him. They ran, the surviving men following, as Skalvik's warriors poured from the longhouses, their shouts echoing in the fog. The granary group was already at the ship, loading the last sacks. Torvald pushed through, his axe swinging at a Skalvik warrior who got too close. "Row," he bellowed, leaping aboard. The men scrambled, oars hitting water, as spears flew from the shore, one grazing Torvald's arm, drawing blood. Gunnar was at the stern, his sword sheathed, his eyes on the village as it faded into the mist. The longship pulled free, the waves, carrying them from Skalvik's wrath. But Torvald's chest burned with questions. They sailed in silence. The men exhausted, their haul heavy, but their losses heavier. 5 warriors dead, cut down in Gunnar's failed flank. Torvald bandaged his arm, his eyes on his brother, who sat alone, cleaning blood from his sword. The sea was calmer now, the mist thinning, but the knot in Torvald's gut was a stone. "How did they know?" he asked, his voice low, meant only for Gunnar. Gunnar didn't look up. "Scouts, maybe. Harold's clever. We underestimated him." Torvald's jaw tightened. "Scouts don't know our plans, Gunnar. Someone told them." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over his brother. "You were at the flank. What went wrong?" Gunnar's hand stilled, his eyes flicking up, dark and guarded. "I told you, they were waiting. We hit them, but they were too many. I lost men, Torvald, good men." His voice cracked, but his gaze didn't waver. Torvald wanted to believe him, to cling to the oath they'd sworn, but the shadow in Gunnar's eyes was deeper now, a crack in their bond. "We'll talk in Eldfjord," he said, turning away. The men rowed, their chants gone, their faces grim. The longship cut through the waves, carrying grain, silver, and a truth Torvald wasn't ready to face. Back in Eldfjord, the village greeted them with cheers, but the mood was heavy. Sigrid ran to Torvald, her arms around him, her eyes searching his face. "You're hurt," she said, touching his bandaged arm. "It's nothing," he said, but his voice was tight. He looked at Gunnar, unloading sacks with the men, his movements stiff, his eyes avoiding Torvald's. Sigrid followed his gaze, her lips pressing thin. "What happened?" she asked. Torvald shook his head, the weight of the raid pressing on him, an ambush. "They knew we were coming." He didn't say more, but Sigrid's eyes darkened, her hand tightening on his arm. That night, the hall was quiet, the feast small. The clan mourned their dead, and Torvald sat at the head, his axe by his side, his thoughts on Gunnar. The silver and grain were theirs, but the cost was too high. He watched his brother across the table, laughing with the men, but the laugh was hollow, his eyes darting to the door. Sigrid leaned close, her voice a whisper. "He's hiding something, Torvald. Find out before it's too late." Torvald nodded, his hand on his axe. The oath of brothers held him, but the crack was widening, and Skalvik's ambush was only the beginning. The truth was coming, and it would burn like fire. Chapter 3. Whispers of Doubt. The longhouse in Eldfjord was warm, its fire crackling, casting shadows on the wooden walls, but the air felt heavy, thick with unspoken words. Torvald Ironhand sat at the head of the table, his axe resting against his chair, its blade still stained from the raid on Skalvik. His arm throbbed where a spear had grazed it, the bandage tight, but the pain was nothing compared to the ache in his chest. 5 men dead, their bodies burned on pyres at dawn, their Ashes scattered to the wind. The Bjornsson clan had their grain and silver, but the cost was steep, and Torvald couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, terribly wrong, across the table. Gunnar Blackfang drank deeply from his horn of ale, his dark eyes fixed on the fire, avoiding Torvald's gaze. The hall was quieter than usual, the men's voices low, their laughter forced. Sigrid, Torvald's wife, moved among them, refilling cups, her blonde braids swinging, her face calm but her eyes sharp, watching Gunnar. She'd warned Torvald before the raid, her words clear. Watch, Gunnar, something's wrong. Now, after the ambush, those words were a blade in his mind, cutting deeper with every glance at his blood brother. Torvald leaned back, his fingers drumming on the table. The raid played over in his head, the silent village, the sudden scream, the Skalvik warriors waiting where Gunnar's group was supposed to strike. Someone had told them, betrayed the plan, and Gunnar's excuse scouts, Harald's cunning didn't sit right. Torvald trusted Gunnar, had sworn an oath with him as boys, their blood mixed under Odin's eye. But the shadow in Gunnar's eyes was growing, a crack in their bond that Torvald couldn't ignore. He stood, his voice cutting through the murmurs. To our fallen, he said, raising his cup. They fought bravely, and their names will live in our songs. The men raised their cups, their voices a low rumble, but Gunnar was slow to join, his hand hesitating before lifting his horn. Torvald's jaw tightened. He sat, leaning toward Sigrid, who was at his side, her hand brushing his. Talk to him, she whispered, her voice low, meant only for him. Tonight, before the whispers spread. Torvald nodded, his eyes on Gunnar, who was laughing with Bjorn, a burly warrior with a scarred face, but the laugh was thin, his eyes darting to the door. The hall emptied as the night grew late, the men stumbling to their homes, leaving Torvald, Sigrid, and Gunnar by the fire. Sigrid excused herself, her glance at Torvald sharp, a reminder of her warning. The door closed behind her, and the hall felt smaller, the fire's warmth not enough to chase the chill. Torvald poured more ale, sliding a cup to Gunnar. Speak, brother, he said, his voice low, steady. What happened at Skalvik? The truth? Gunnar's hand froze on his cup, his eyes flicking to Torvald, then away. I told you, he said, his voice tight. They were waiting. An ambush. I lost men, Torvald. Good men. He drank, his knuckles white. Torvald leaned forward, his eyes hard. They knew our plan, Gunnar. Not just that we were coming, but where your flank, the east wall. How Gunnar's jaw clenched, his fingers tightening on the cup. Harald's no fool. His scouts don't know our plans. Torvald cut in, his voice sharper now. Only my men knew, and I trust them. You knew the plan best. Gunnar, you led the flank. He paused, his heart heavy. Did you talk to someone? A traitor? A woman? Gunnar's eyes flashed, his face palling. You think I'd betray you? He said, his voice low, almost a growl. After all, we've been through our oath. I don't want to think it, Torvald said, his hand resting on his axe. But 5 men are dead, and you're not telling me everything. I see it in your eyes, brother. What are you hiding? Gunnar stood, his chair scraping the floor, his hand on his sword. You doubt me, Torvald, after I fought for you, bled for you? His voice was loud now, echoing in the empty hall. I lost men, too. I watched them die. Accuse me again, and we'll settle this with blades. Torvald stood, his height towering over Gunnar, his axe in hand. I don't want your blood, Gunnar. I want the truth. If you're my brother, give it to me. For a moment, they stood frozen, the fire crackling between them, the air thick with tension. Gunnar's hand twitched on his sword, but he didn't draw. He stepped back, his face a mask of anger, and something else, guilt, maybe, or fear. You'll have your truth, he said, his voice low. But not tonight. He turned and left, the door slamming behind him, leaving Torvald alone with the fire and his doubts. The next day, the village buzzed with whispers. The men spoke in low voices, their eyes darting to Gunnar as he walked through Fjord, his head high but his steps quick. Torvald watched from the longhouse door, Sigrid at his side. "The clan's talking," she said, her voice soft but firm. "They say Gunnar faltered, that the ambush was his fault. Some say he spoke to a Skalvik traitor before we sailed." Torvald's stomach twisted. "A traitor? Who saw this?" "Bjorn," Sigrid said. "He saw Gunnar at the docks, talking to a man in a hooded cloak. The man left on a Skalvik boat, the day before the raid." Torvald's hand clenched into a fist. "Why didn't Bjorn tell me?" "He's loyal to you," Sigrid said, "but he's afraid of Gunnar. They all are. You need to act, Torvald, before the clan turns." Torvald nodded, his mind racing. He called a meeting at noon, gathering the warriors in the square by the fjord. The wind was sharp, the sky gray, and the men stood in a circle, their faces grim. Gunnar was there, his sword at his side, his eyes guarded. Torvald stepped forward, his voice loud, carrying over the wind. "We lost brothers at Skalvik," he said. "Good men, cut down in an ambush. Someone told Harold our plan. I need to know who." The men shifted, their murmurs low, their eyes on Gunnar. Bjorn stepped forward, his scarred face set. "I saw something, chieftain," he said, his voice steady but low. "Gunnar, at the docks, 2 nights before we sailed. He spoke to a man, a Skalvik traitor. They talked long, and the man left fast." Gunnar's face darkened, his hand on his sword. "You call me a traitor, Bjorn," he snapped. "I spoke to a traitor about fish, nothing more. You think I'd sell out my clan?" Bjorn didn't flinch. "I know what I saw, Blackfang. The man was Skalvik. His boat sailed straight to Harold's shore." The men murmured louder, their hands on their weapons. Torvald raised a hand, silencing them. "Gunnar," he said, his voice hard but calm. "Speak. Did you talk to this man?" Gunnar's eyes met Torvald's, and for a moment, the hall was silent, the wind the only sound. "I did," he said, his voice steady. "A traitor, asking about our catch. I told him nothing of the raid. You have my word, brother." Torvald wanted to believe him, to cling to their oath, but the whispers were growing, the clan's trust cracking. "Your word," he said, "is all we have. But 5 men are dead, and I need more than words." He turned to the clan. "We'll find the truth. If anyone knows more, speak now, or face Odin's judgment." No one spoke, but the eyes on Gunnar were sharp, accusing. He stood tall, his face a mask, but Torvald saw the flicker in his eyes, fear, or something darker. The meeting ended, the men dispersing, but the whispers followed, spreading like fire. Torvald returned to the longhouse, Sigrid at his side, her hand on his arm. "He's lying," she said, her voice low. "You know it, Torvald. Confront him, alone, or the clan will do it for you." Torvald nodded, his heart heavy. The oath of brothers was breaking, and the truth was a blade, ready to cut. He would face Gunnar, demand answers, and pray the gods showed him the way before the whispers turned to war. Chapter 4. The blade in the dark. The moon hung low over Fjord, its pale light glinting off the fjord's icy waters, casting long shadows across the village. Torvald Ironhand stood outside his longhouse, his breath clouding in the bitter cold, his axe strapped to his back. The village was quiet, the fires in the homes dim, but the air buzzed with tension, like the hum before a storm. Inside, Sigrid slept, her warning from earlier ringing in Torvald's ears. "Confront him, alone, or the clan will do it for you." The whispers about Gunnar Blackfang had grown louder since the meeting, the clan's trust in him fraying like old rope. Torvald's heart was heavy, torn between the oath he'd sworn with his blood brother and the growing doubt that gnawed at him like a wolf. Gunnar's house was at the edge of the village, a small longhouse with a single chimney, its smoke curling into the night sky. Torvald walked toward it, his boots crunching on the frost, his hand resting on his axe. The memory of Skalvik burned in his mind, the ambush, the 5 dead men, Bjorn's accusation that Gunnar had spoken to a Skalvik traitor. Gunnar's defense's word, his oath had held the clan back, but only just. Torvald needed the truth, and he needed it now. Before the whispers turned to blades, he reached Gunnar's door, its wood weathered, carved with runes for protection. He knocked, a hard thud that echoed in the quiet. No answer. Torvald's jaw tightened, and he pushed the door open, the hinges creaking. The house was dark, the fire in the hearth reduced to embers, casting a faint red glow. Gunnar, Torvald called, his voice low, steady. "We need to talk." Silence, but the air felt wrong, heavy with a scent. Torvald knew blood, faint but sharp. His hand went to his axe, his eyes scanning the shadows. The longhouse was small, with a single room, a bed in the corner, a table cluttered with cups, and a half-eaten loaf. Gunnar's sword was gone from its place by the door, and his cloak was missing. Torvald's stomach twisted. He stepped inside, his boots soft on the dirt floor, and saw it a smear of blood on the table, fresh, still wet. His heart pounded. He moved to the bed, pulling back the furs, but it was empty. The blood wasn't Gunnar's, or was it? Mind raced, Sigrid's warning clashing with the oath he'd sworn. Had Gunnar run, or was he hurt, taken? He turned to leave, to wake the clan, when a shadow moved outside the window, quick and silent. Torvald froze, his axe in hand, and crept to the door. Peering into the night, a figure stood by the fjord's edge, cloaked its back to the village. The moonlight caught the glint of a sword, and Torvald knew it was Gunnar. He stepped outside, his breath slow, his steps silent on the frost. The figure didn't move, staring at the water, and Torvald's grip tightened on his axe. "Gunnar," he said, his voice low, carrying over the wind. "What are you doing?" The figure turned, and it was Gunnar, his face pale, his eyes dark and wide, like a man caught in a trap. His sword was in his hand, its blade wet, gleaming red in the moonlight. Torvald's blood ran cold. "Whose blood is that?" he asked, stepping closer, his axe ready. Gunnar's mouth opened, but no words came. His eyes darted to the village, then back to Torvald, and for a moment, Torvald saw fear, all deep fear in his brother's face. "It's not what you think," Gunnar said, his voice rough, shaking. "I didn't then tell me," Torvald cut in, his voice hard. "The clan thinks you betrayed us at 5 men are dead, and now there's blood in your house, on your blade. Speak, brother, or I'll drag you to the square myself." Gunnar's hand tightened on his sword, his knuckles white. "You don't understand, Torvald," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "It's bigger than us, bigger than the clan. I didn't want this." Torvald's heart sank, the oath of their youth cracking under the weight of Gunnar's words. "What did you do?" he asked, stepping closer, his axe raised. "Who did you talk to? The traitor? Harold?" Gunnar's eyes flickered, and he took a step back, his sword lifting slightly. "I didn't talk to Harold," he said, his voice breaking. "But someone came to me, before the raid, a man from Nordheim, not Skalvik. He knew things about our clan, our plans. He offered me silver, Torvald, enough to buy land, to leave this life." Torvald's blood roared in his ears, his axe trembling in his grip. "You took it?" he asked, his voice a growl. "You sold us out for silver." "No," Gunnar snapped, his sword shaking. "I didn't tell him the plan. I told him nothing, but he knew too much. I think he told Skalvik, not me. Tonight, he came back, to my house. He wanted more, threatened to tell you I'd betrayed you." Gunnar's voice dropped, his eyes haunted. "I killed him, Torvald, his blood's on my blade. I had to." Torvald stared at him, the wind howling between them, the fjord's waves slapping the shore. The blood in Gunnar's house, On his sword it fit, but the story didn't. Nordheim, a rival clan to the north, was far from Why would they meddle in a raid? And why would Gunnar hide this, not come to him? The oath bound them to share everything, but Gunnar had kept this secret, and men had died. Where's the body? Torvald asked, his voice cold. Gunnar pointed. To the fjord. I weighted it, threw it in. No one will find it. Torvald's jaw clenched. You should have told me, Gunnar. The moment this man came to you, you should have come to me. We're brothers. Gunnar's face twisted, pain and anger mixing. I wanted to protect you, Torvald, the clan. If I'd told you, you'd have gone after Nordheim, started a war we can't win. They're stronger than us, richer. I thought I could handle it. Torvald stepped closer, his axe heavy in his hand. You thought wrong. 5 men are dead, and the clan doubts you. I doubt you. The words hurt, cutting deeper than any blade, but they were true. Come to the hall tomorrow. Tell the clan what you told me. Let them judge. Gunnar's eyes widened, his sword lowering. They'll kill me, Torvald. You know it. They want blood. Then you should have trusted me, Torvald said, turning away, his heart breaking. Dawn, Gunnar. Be there, or I'll hunt you myself. He walked back to the village, the wind biting his face. Gunnar's shadow still by the fjord. The oath of brothers was shattered, and Torvald felt it like a wound, raw and bleeding. He reached the longhouse, Sigrid awake, her eyes searching his face. What happened? She asked, her voice soft. Torvald sat, his axe clattering to the floor. Gunnar killed a man tonight, he said, his voice hollow. A Nordheim traitor, he says. Claims the man tried to bribe him before Skalvik knew our plans. Says he didn't betray us, but he hid it. Sigrid, he hid it, and men died. Sigrid's hand tightened on his. What will you do? Torvald stared at the fire, its flames dancing like the truth he couldn't grasp. He'll face the clan at dawn. They'll decide. But I don't know if I can protect him. Sigrid nodded, her face grim. The clan's angry. Torvald, they want someone to blame? If Gunnar's guilty, or even if he's not, they'll demand blood. Torvald's chest ached, the weight of leadership crushing him. He'd trusted Gunnar, fought beside him, loved him like a brother. But the blood on his sword, the secrets he'd kept, were a blade in Torvald's back. Dawn would come, and with it, the truth or a lie that would spark a war. The night passed slowly, the wind howling, the shadows deep. Torvald didn't sleep, his eyes on the door, waiting for Gunnar to come, to explain, to fix what was broken. But the door stayed shut, and as the first light crept over the fjord, Torvald knew the blade in the dark had cut deeper than he feared, and the clan would never be the same. Chapter 5. The fire of vengeance. Dawn broke over Fjord, gray and cold. The fjord's waters still as glass under a sky heavy with clouds. Torvald Ironhand stood in the village square, his axe at his side, his red beard damp with morning mist. His arm ached where the Skalvik spear had grazed him, but the pain was dull compared to the fire in his chest. The Bjornsson clan gathered around him, their faces grim, their whispers sharp like blades. Gunnar Blackfang's confession by the Fjord last night, his meeting with a Nordheim traitor, the blood on his sword, the body sunk in the water burned in Torvald's mind. He'd told Gunnar to face the clan at dawn, to tell the truth. But the square was empty of his blood brother's shadow, and Torvald's heart was a stone. Sigrid stood beside him, her blonde braid tight, her eyes scanning the crowd. The clan was restless, their hands on axes and swords, their voices low but angry. Bjorn, the scarred warrior who'd seen Gunnar with the Skalvik traitor, stood near the front, his face hard. The whispers had spread like fire through Fjord. Gunnar's secrecy, the ambush at Skalvik, the blood in his house. The clan wanted answers, and if Gunnar wouldn't give them, they'd take blood instead. Torvald felt the weight of their eyes, the chieftain's burden heavy on his shoulders. The oath he'd sworn with Gunnar as boys was breaking, and he didn't know if he could hold it together. Where is he? Bjorn growled, stepping forward, his axe in hand. Black was to face us at dawn. He's run, hasn't he? The crowd murmured, their anger rising. Torvald raised a hand, silencing them, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. Gunnar will come, he said, though doubt gnawed at him. He's my brother, sworn by blood. He'll face you and speak the truth. Sigrid's hand brushed his, her voice a whisper. He's not here, Torvald. Check his house, now. Torvald nodded, his jaw tight, and signaled to Bjorn and to others leave. A wiry archer, and Hakon, a broad man with a hammer. They followed him to Gunnar's longhouse at the village's edge, the crowd trailing, their whispers loud now, accusing. The door was shut, the runes carved into it dull in the gray light. Torvald knocked, his fist heavy, but no answer came. He pushed it open, the hinges creaking, and stepped inside, the air cold and stale. The embers in the hearth long dead. The house was empty. Gunnar's bed was unmade, his cloak gone, his sword missing from its place. The blood smear on the table was dry now, a dark stain that told no lies. Torvald's stomach twisted, his eyes scanning for any sign, a note, a clue, but there was nothing. Gunnar had fled, and the truth had fled with him. He's gone, Bjorn said, his voice low, angry. The cowards run. Torvald, he betrayed us at Skalvik, and now he's left us to clean his mess. Torvald turned, his face hard, but his heart was breaking. We don't know that, he said, though the words felt hollow. He said a Nordheim man came to him, tried to bribe him. He killed the man last night, sank the body. He swore he didn't betray us. Bjorn spat on the floor. And you believe him? 5 men are dead, chieftain. He spoke to a traitor, hid it, and now he's gone. That's guilt, plain as day. The crowd outside grew louder, their voices a roar. Where's Blackfang? Someone shouted. Bring him out. Torvald stepped to the door, his axe in hand, and faced them, his voice loud, cutting through the noise. Gunnar's not here, he said. He's left Fjord. I don't know where, but I'll find him. He'll answer for Skalvik, for the blood on his blade. I swear it on Odin's name. The clan quieted, but their eyes were hard, their trust in Torvald thinning. A woman, Astrid, mother of one of the dead, stepped forward, her face wet with tears. My son died at Skalvik, she said, her voice shaking. Gunnar led them into that ambush. If he's guilty, I want his blood. Torvald, you owe us that. Torvald nodded, his throat tight. You'll have justice, Astrid. I'll bring Gunnar back, alive or dead. The words hurt, but they were true. The clan deserved answers, and Torvald would give them, even if it meant hunting his brother. He turned to Bjorn, Leif, and Hakon. Search the shore, the woods, the paths, to Nordheim. Find his tracks. He can't have gone far. The men nodded, their faces set, and left, their weapons ready. Torvald returned to the longhouse, Sigrid at his side, her hand on his arm. You're doing what you must, she said, her voice soft but firm. But the clan's angry. Torvald, they'll turn on you if you protect him. I'm not protecting him, Torvald said, his voice low, raw. I'm finding the truth. Gunnar's, my brother, Sigrid. I can't believe he'd betray us. Not without proof. Sigrid's eyes darkened. His running is proof enough. Be careful, Torvald. The clan's fire is burning, and it won't stop with Gunnar. The day passed in a blur of searches and whispers. Bjorn's group found tracks leading north, toward Nordheim, faint but fresh, a single man's boots in the mud. Torvald gathered a small group, Bjorn, Leif, and 3 others, and prepared to follow. The clan watched, their faces grim, their hands on their weapons. Astrid's voice echoed in Torvald's mind, her demand for blood a weight he couldn't shake. As they left Fjord, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of salt and pine. The path to Nordheim was rough, winding through forests and over hills, a 3-day trek. Torvald led his axe at his side, his eyes on the tracks, his heart heavy with doubt and anger. Gunnar's confession killing the Nordheim man, hiding, the bribe felt like a half-truth, a shield for something darker. The oath they'd sworn as boys, their blood mixed in the dirt, was a chain now, pulling Torvald toward a truth he feared. The first night, they camped in a clearing, the fire small, the men quiet. Bjorn sharpened his axe, his eyes on Torvald. "What if we find him?" he asked, his voice low. "What then, chieftain?" Torvald stared at the flames, his hand on his axe. "We bring him back," he said. "He faces the clan, tells the truth. If he's guilty." His voice trailed off, the words too heavy to speak. Bjorn nodded, but his eyes were hard. "The clan won't wait for truth, Torvald. They want vengeance. If Gunnar's betrayed us, his blood's the only thing that'll quench their fire." Torvald didn't answer, his thoughts on Gunnar, his laugh, his sword, the shadow in his eyes. The fire crackled, and the night closed in, the stars hidden by clouds. The path to Nordheim stretched ahead, and with it, the truth or a lie that would burn Eldfjord to ashes. By dawn, they moved again, the tracks clearer now, leading deeper into the forest. Leif, the archer, scouted ahead, his steps silent, and returned with news: a cloak. Gunnar's caught on a thorn, its edge torn. Torvald held it, the rough wool familiar, and felt a pang of loss. Gunnar was close, but so was the clan's anger, and Torvald knew the fire of vengeance was burning, ready to consume them all. Chapter 6. The clan divided. The forest north of Eldfjord was dense, its pines heavy with frost, their branches blocking the weak sun. Torvald Ironhand led his small band, Bjorn, Leif, and 3 others along the muddy path toward Nordheim. Gunnar Blackfang's tracks faint but clear in the dirt. Torvald's axe hung heavy at his side, his red beard damp with mist, his heart torn between duty and the fading oath of brotherhood. Gunnar's cloak, torn and found on a thorn, was stuffed in Torvald's pack, its rough wool a reminder of the man he'd called brother. The clan's anger burned behind him, their whispers of betrayal loud in his mind. And Sigrid's warning: the clan's fire is burning, and it won't stop with Gunnar, weighed like a stone. The men moved quietly, their eyes scanning the trees, their hands on weapons. Bjorn, his scarred face grim, walked beside Torvald, his axe ready. Leif, the wiry archer, scouted ahead, his bow strung, while the others hackened with his hammer, and 2 younger warriors, Sven and Olaf, kept close, their faces tense. The tracks led north, toward Nordheim, a clan stronger and richer than and Torvald's gut told him Gunnar's flight there was no accident. The Nordheim man Gunnar claimed to have killed, the bribe he'd hidden, the ambush at Skalvik, it all pointed to a truth Torvald wasn't ready to face. They stopped at midday, the forest silent except for the drip of melting frost. Leif returned, his breath short, his eyes sharp. "Tracks split," he said, pointing north and west. "One set keeps to Nordheim, the other veers to a stream. He's covering his path." Torvald's jaw tightened. "He's running scared," he said, his voice low, "but he can't hide forever. We follow the Nordheim trail. If he's gone there, we'll find him." Bjorn spat into the dirt. "He's not just running, chieftain. He's guilty. Why else split his tracks? He betrayed us at Skalvik, and now he's crawling to Nordheim for protection." Torvald's hand clenched on his axe, his eyes hard. "We don't know that, Bjorn. Not yet. He's my brother, sworn by blood. I'll hear him before I judge." Bjorn's face darkened, but he nodded, his axe shifting in his grip. The others exchanged glances, their silence heavy with doubt. Torvald felt their eyes, the clan's trust in him fraying like old cloth. He led them on, The tracks clearer now, boots pressed deep into the mud, as if Gunnar had run in haste. The forest grew thicker, the air colder, and Torvald's heart pounded with each step, the oath he'd sworn with Gunnar cracking under the weight of betrayal. Back in Fjord, the village was a storm of whispers. Sigrid stood in the square, her blonde braid tight, her eyes scanning the faces of the clan. The women tended fires, the children played, but the men gathered in knots, their voices low, their hands on axes. Astrid, mother of a warrior lost at Skalvik, was loudest, her grief a fire that spread. "Gunnar's run," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the cold. "He betrayed us, and Torvald's chasing him like a fool. We need blood, not promises." Sigrid stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Torvald's your chieftain," she said. "He swore to bring Gunnar back, to find the truth. You'll have justice, Astrid, but not by tearing the clan apart." Astrid's eyes flashed, her hands clenched. "Justice? 5 men are dead, Sigrid. My son's gone. Gunnar's blood should be on the ground, not Torvald's mercy." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shifting uneasily. Sigrid held Astrid's gaze, her heart heavy but her voice steady. "Torvald's doing what's right. If you turn on him, you turn on Fjord. The clan's strong because we stand together, not because we spill our own blood." A man Einar stepped forward, his face weathered, his sword at his side. "Sigrid's right," he said, his voice low. "But the clan's breaking. Half want Gunnar's head, half trust Torvald to bring him. If he fails, Astrid's not alone in wanting blood." Sigrid nodded, her jaw tight. "He won't fail. Give him time." She turned away, her eyes on the path north, praying Torvald would find Gunnar before the clan's fire burned out of control in the forest. Torvald's group reached a clearing at dusk, the Nordheim trail stronger now, the tracks joined by others too. Sets, maybe 3, all fresh. Leif knelt, his fingers tracing the mud. "He's not alone," he said, his voice low. "These aren't his boots. Bigger, heavier, Nordheim men, maybe." Torvald's stomach twisted, his hand on his axe. "They've found him," he said, his voice grim. "Or he's gone to them." The thought cut deep, the idea of Gunnar seeking Nordheim's aid a blade in his heart. The oath they'd sworn blood mixed under Odin's eye was a shadow now, fading with each step. Bjorn's eyes narrowed. "If he's with Nordheim, he's a traitor. Torvald, no more excuses. We find him, we drag him back, or we kill him." Torvald's hand tightened on his axe, his voice low. "We find him first, then we judge." He led them on, the tracks, leading to a ridge overlooking a small camp, 3 tents, a fire, and men moving in the twilight. Torvald crouched, his men behind him, their breaths shallow. Gunnar was there, his dark hair catching the firelight, his sword at his side, talking to a tall man in a fur cloak, his face hidden. Torvald's heart sank, the sight of Gunnar with Nordheim men, a blow he couldn't dodge. "Stay here," he whispered to his men, his axe in hand. "I'll talk to him, alone." Bjorn grabbed his arm, his voice a hiss. "He's with them, Torvald. Don't be a fool." Torvald shook him off, his eyes hard. "He's my brother. I owe him a chance." He crept down the ridge, his steps silent, the fire's glow lighting his path. Gunnar's voice carried, low but clear, as he spoke to the Nordheim man. "Didn't tell them anything," Gunnar said, his voice tight. "But they think I did. Torvald's coming. He'll kill me if he finds me." The Nordheim man laughed, his voice deep. "Let him come. Eldford's weak, Gunnar. Join us, and you'll have a place. Nordheim's stronger, richer. Your clan's finished." Torvald's blood roared, his hand trembling on his axe. He stepped into the firelight, his voice a growl. "Gunnar." Gunnar spun, his face pale, his sword half drawn. The Nordheim man stepped back, his hand on his own blade, his eyes sharp. "Torvald," Gunnar said, his voice shaking. "You shouldn't be here." "You ran," Torvald said, his axe raised, his eyes locked on his brother. "You lied, and now you're with them. Tell me why I shouldn't cut you down." Gunnar's hand dropped from his sword, his eyes wide. "I didn't betray you, I swear it. They came to me, offered silver, but I said no. The ambush at Skalvik, they knew, because Nordheim told them, not me." The Nordheim man laughed again, his blade gleaming. "He's yours, Ironhand. Take him, or leave him. But days are numbered." Torvald's axe trembled, his eyes on Gunnar, searching for the brother he'd known. The clan was divided, their trust broken, and Gunnar's words were all he had. But the fire in the camp, the Nordheim man's smile, and the tracks in the mud told a story Torvald couldn't ignore. The oath was gone, and the clan's fire was burning, ready to consume them all. Chapter 7. The Council of War. The fire, in the Nordheim camp, crackled, its flames casting long shadows across the clearing, as Torvald Ironhand stood, his axe gripped tight, facing Gunnar Blackfang. The Nordheim man's laugh still hung in the air, sharp and mocking, his blade glinting in the firelight. Gunnar's face was pale, his sword half drawn, his eyes wide with fear and something deeper, guilt or defiance. Torvald's men, Bjorn, Leif, and the others, crouched on the ridge above, their weapons ready, watching the scene unfold. The air was thick with the smell of pine and smoke, and the weight of betrayal pressed on Torvald's chest like a stone. The oath he'd sworn with Gunnar, their blood mixed as boys under Odin's gaze, was a fragile thread, ready to snap. "You're with them," Torvald said, his voice low, a growl that carried over the fire's crackle. "You ran to North after Skalvik, after the blood on your blade. Tell me why, Gunnar, or I drag you back to Eldfjord in chains." Gunnar's hand dropped from his sword, his shoulders slumping. "I didn't betray you, Torvald," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "I told you the Nordheim man came to me before Skalvik, offered silver to turn on you. I refused, killed him when he came back. I ran because the clan thinks I'm a traitor, and they won't listen. You won't listen." The Nordheim man stepped forward, his fur cloak heavy, his smile cold. "Your brother's smarter than you, Ironhand," he said, his voice deep, cutting. "Eldfjord's weak, divided. Join us, Gunnar, and live. Stay with your chieftain, and die with him." Torvald's axe rose, his eyes never leaving Gunnar. "Speak, brother. Did you tell Nordheim our plans? Did you sell us out at Skalvik?" Gunnar's eyes flashed, his voice breaking. "No, I swear it, Torvald. They knew because Nordheim spies are everywhere, not because of me. I came here to warn them off, to stop them before they hit Eldfjord next." Torvald's heart twisted, wanting to believe, but the Nordheim man's smile, Gunnar's flight, and the clan's dead at Skalvik were too heavy. "You hid the truth," he said, stepping closer, his axe steady. "You ran. That's not the act of a brother." The Nordheim man laughed again, his blade drawn now. "Enough talk. Kill him, Ironhand, or I will." He lunged, his sword flashing, toward Gunnar, but Torvald moved faster, his axe swinging, catching the blade with a clang that echoed through the trees. The Nordheim man staggered back, his smile gone, his eyes wide. "Get back," Torvald roared, his axe raised. "This is between me and him." He turned to Gunnar, his voice low. "Come with me. Face the clan. Tell them what you told me. It's your only chance." Gunnar nodded, his face pale, his sword sheathed. "I'll come," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But they won't believe me, Torvald. You know it." Torvald grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the ridge, away from the Nordheim man, whose men were stirring now, their weapons drawn. Bjorn and Leif appeared, their faces hard, their blades ready. "Move," Bjorn growled, his axe pointed at Gunnar. "You've got a lot to answer for, Blackfang." They retreated into the forest, the Nordheim camp fading into the dark, the Fire's glow a distant threat. The trek back to Eldfjord was silent. Gunnar's hands bound with rope, his head low, Torvald leading, his heart heavy. The clan's anger waited, a fire ready to burn, and Torvald didn't know if he could quench it. Back in Eldfjord, the village was a storm of voices as dawn broke. Sigrid stood in the square, her blonde braid tight, her eyes sharp, calming the clan as best she could. Astrid, the grieving mother, was loud, her voice raw with pain. "Gunnar's a traitor," she shouted, her hands clenched. "He sold us to Skalvik, and now he's run to Nordheim. Where's our justice?" Sigrid raised a hand, her voice steady. "Torvald's bringing him back," she said. "He'll face you, all of you. Wait for the truth before you draw blood." Einar, the weathered warrior, stepped forward, his sword at his side. "The clan split," he said, his voice low. "Half want Gunnar's head, half wait for Torvald. But if he's soft on Blackfang, we'll choose a new chieftain." Sigrid's jaw tightened, but she nodded, her eyes on the path north. "Torvald's your chieftain. Trust him, or Eldfjord falls." The clan murmured, their hands on weapons, their trust fraying. Sigrid's heart pounded, but she stood tall, praying Torvald would return with answers before the clan broke apart. Group reached Eldfjord at midday, Gunnar bound, his face bruised from the trek, his eyes down. The clan gathered, their voices rising, Astrid's loudest, demanding blood. Torvald led Gunnar to the square, his axe in hand, his voice loud over the noise. "Hear him," he said, pushing Gunnar forward. "He claims no betrayal, but no hand is in this. Speak, Gunnar." Gunnar raised his head, his voice steady but weak. "I didn't betray you," he said. "A Nordheim man offered silver before Skalvik to turn on Torvald. I refused, killed him when he came back. I ran because you judged me guilty without proof. Nordheim's the enemy, not me." "The clan," roared Astrid's voice cutting through. "Liar, my son's dead because of you." She lunged a knife in her hand, but Torvald caught her arm, his strength holding her back. "Enough," he bellowed, his eyes hard. "We'll have a council tonight. Every voice will be heard. We'll find the truth, or Odin help us all." The clan quieted, but their eyes were sharp, their hands on weapons. Torvald locked Gunnar in a small shed, guarded by Leif, and called the council to the longhouse. The fire burned high that night, the hall packed with warriors, women, and elders, their faces grim. Sigrid sat beside Torvald, her hand on his, her eyes steady but worried. Bjorn spoke first, his voice loud. "Gunnar's guilty. He spoke to a traitor, hid it, ran to Nordheim. 5 men died at Skalvik. His blood's the price." Einar stood, his voice calmer. "We need proof. Gunnar's fought for us, bled for us. If Nordheim's behind this, we strike them, not him." Astrid's voice was a sob. "Proof. His lies killed my son. I want justice. Torvald, now." Sigrid leaned forward, her voice clear. "Nordheim's stronger than us. If they planned Skalvik's ambush, they want war. Killing Gunnar won't stop them. We need him alive to learn what he knows." Torvald nodded, his heart heavy. "Gunnar stays alive until we know the truth," he said, his voice firm. "We send scouts to Nordheim, watch their moves. If they're coming, we'll be ready. But no blood spills tonight." The clan murmured, some nodding, others glaring, their trust in Torvald thin. Gunnar sat in the shed, his hands bound, his eyes on the wall, the weight of his secrets heavy. Torvald stood by the fire, his axe at his side, the clan divided, the council a spark, ready to ignite. Nordheim loomed, and the truth was a blade, sharp and close, ready to cut Eldfjord apart. Chapter 8. The path to Nordheim. The longhouse in Eldfjord was quiet, its fire reduced to embers, the air heavy with the council's bitter words. Torvald Ironhand stood outside, his axe strapped to his back, his red beard damp with night mist. The clan was split, half baying for Gunnar Blackfang's blood, half holding to Torvald's call for truth. Gunnar sat in a guarded shed, his hands bound, his confession of a Nordheim bribe and a dead man in the fjord ringing in Torvald's ears. The oath they'd sworn as boys, their blood mixed under Odin's gaze, was a shadow now. Torn by Gunnar's secrets and the ambush at Skalvik that left 5 men dead, Sigrid's warning. The clan's fire won't stop with Gunnar burned in Torvald's mind as he looked north. Where Nordheim's threat loomed like a storm, dawn broke gray and cold. The fjord's water still, reflecting the heavy clouds. Torvald gathered his trusted men, Bjorn, with his scarred face and axe, Leif the wiry archer, and Hakon with his hammer in the square. The clan watched, their faces grim, their whispers sharp. Astrid, mother of a fallen warrior, stood at the edge, her eyes red. Her demand for Gunnar's blood a weight on Torvald's shoulders. He raised his voice, steady despite the ache in his chest. Nordheim's behind Skalvik's ambush, he said. Gunnar claims he refused their bribe, killed their man. We need proof. I'm going to Nordheim to find it. Leif, Hakon, you're with me. Bjorn, you stay. Keep the clan together. Bjorn's jaw tightened, his axe shifting in his grip. You trust Gunnar's lies, chieftain? He ran to Nordheim. He's their dog now. Torvald's eyes hardened. I trust the truth, Bjorn. Stay here, hold the village. If I'm wrong, you'll have Gunnar's head. He turned to Sigrid, standing beside him, her blonde braid tight, her face calm, but worried. Keep Astrid calm, he whispered. Don't let the clan break. Sigrid nodded, her hand brushing his. Bring the truth back, Torvald, or they'll turn on you next. The path to Nordheim was a 3-day trek through dense forests and rocky hills, the air growing colder as they climbed. Torvald led, his axe at his side, Leif scouting ahead, Hakon's hammer swinging with each step. The tracks they'd followed, before Gunnar's, joined by Nordheim men, were gone, washed away by rain, but Torvald's gut told him Nordheim held answers. Gunnar's story, the bribe, the dead traitor, didn't add up, and the Nordheim man's words in the camp held. Days are numbered, were a blade at his throat. The first night they camped in a hollow, the fire, small to avoid eyes. Leif sharpened his arrows, his voice low. Nordheim's got twice our men, Torvald. If they're planning war, we can't fight alone. Torvald nodded, his eyes on the flames. We're not fighting yet. We're watching, listening. If Gunnar with them, I'll drag him back. If he's not, we find who paid for Skalvik's ambush. Hakon grunted, his hammer resting on his knee. And if Gunnar's there, man? What then, chieftain? Torvald's hand tightened on his axe, his voice hard. Then he faces the clan. No oath will save him. The words hurt, but they were true. The Brotherhood was breaking, and Torvald's trust was a thin thread. Back in Fjord, Sigrid stood in the longhouse, the fire high. The clan gathered for another night of talk. Astrid's voice was loud, her grief a spark that spread. Gunnar's guilty, she said, her hands clenched. Torvald's chasing shadows while Nordheim laughs. We need blood, Sigrid, now. Sigrid faced her, her voice firm. Torvald's finding the truth. Astrid, killing Gunnar won't bring your son back, but it might start a war we can't win. Wait for Torvald. Bjorn stepped forward, his axe in hand, his voice low but heavy. The clan's tired of waiting. If Torvald's soft on Blackfang, we'll choose another chieftain. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shifting uneasily. Sigrid's heart pounded, but she held her ground. Torvald's your chieftain. Betray him, and you betray Fjord. Nordheim's the enemy, not Gunnar, not yet. The clan quieted, but their eyes were sharp, their hands on weapons. Sigrid turned away, her eyes on the north, praying Torvald would return before the clan's fire consumed them all. On the second day, Torvald's group reached a ridge overlooking Nordheim's valley. The village was bigger than Fjord, its longhouses sturdy, its walls high, guarded by men with spears. Smoke rose from forges, and longships lined the shore, their dragon prows gleaming. Leif crouched beside Torvald, his eyes narrow. "There? Ready for war," he said. "Look, new shields, fresh blades. They're not just waiting." Torvald's stomach twisted, his hand on his axe. "We get closer," he said. "Find their chieftain, Jarl Ragnvald. If Gunnar's here, he'll be with him." They moved at dusk, slipping through the forest, Leif's step silent, Hakon's hammer muffled by cloth. The village was alive, its men drinking, their voices loud, with talk of raids and glory. Torvald hid in the shadows near the main hall, its doors open, firelight spilling out. Jarl Ragnvald sat at the head, a big man with a gray beard, his axe propped beside him. His warriors filled the benches, but Gunnar was nowhere in sight. Torvald's heart sank, his hope of finding Gunnar fading. Leif whispered, "Listen." A warrior was speaking, his voice clear. "Skalvik paid us well," he said, laughing. "Fjord's fools walked into our trap. Their chieftain's weak, chasing his own man. We hit them next. Take their Fjord." Torvald's blood roared, his hand trembling on his axe. Nordheim had planned Skalvik's ambush, paid for it, but Gunnar's role was still unclear. Had he lied, or was he a pawn? Torvald signaled retreat, his mind racing. They needed proof, a name, a witness to bring to Eldfjord, to unite the clan against Nordheim, not Gunnar. The third day, they hid near Nordheim's shore, watching the longships. A man approached, cloaked, his face hidden, carrying a sack. Leif notched an arrow, but Torvald held up a hand, his eyes narrow. The man met a Nordheim warrior, their voices low. "Gunnar's gone," the cloaked man said. "He warned us, but Eldfjord's coming. Pay me, and I'll keep them divided." The Nordheim warrior tossed a pouch of silver, laughing. "Keep, Torvald chasing ghosts. We'll burn Eldfjord by spring." Torvald's heart stopped, the cloaked man's voice familiar, but not Gunnar's. He signaled Leif, who loosed an arrow, catching the Nordheim warrior's leg. The cloaked man ran, but Hakon charged, his hammer swinging, knocking him to the ground. Torvald ripped off the cloak, revealing Einar, the weathered warrior from Eldfjord, his face pale, his eyes wide. Einar Torvald growled, his axe at the man's throat. "You sold us to Nordheim. Why?" Einar's voice shook, his hands raised. "They offered silver, land. Eldfjord's weak, Torvald. Gunnar knew, tried to stop me, but I told them your plans. Skalvik was my doing, not his." Torvald's world tilted, the oath with Gunnar snapping back, the truth a blade in his gut. Einar was the traitor, not Gunnar, but the clan's fire was. Burning and Gunnar was still gone. He tied Einar's hands, his voice cold. "You'll face the clan. Pray they're kinder than I am." The path back to Eldfjord was heavy, Einar bound, the truth bitter. Nordheim was coming, and the clan was divided, ready to break. Torvald's axe was steady, but his heart was not, the fire of war rising, and the truth of Gunnar's loyalty, a spark that could save or destroy them all. Chapter 9. The Price of Loyalty. The trek back to Eldfjord was a grim march. The forest heavy with mist, the air biting with winter's edge. Torvald Ironhand led his men, Leif the archer, Hakon with his hammer, and Einar bound and stumbling, his face bruised from Hakon's blow. Torvald's axe hung at his side, its weight a comfort against the storm in his chest. Einar's confession burned in his mind. He, not Gunnar Blackfang, had betrayed the Bjornsson clan to Nordheim, selling the Skalvik raids plans for silver and land. Gunnar, Torvald's blood brother, had tried to stop him, and now Gunnar was gone, hunted by a clan that believed him a traitor. The oath they'd sworn as boys, their blood mixed under Odin's gaze, flickered like a dying flame, and Torvald's heart ached with the truth he'd almost missed. The path was muddy, the trees looming, their branches clawing at the sky. Leif scouted ahead, his bow ready, while Hakon prodded Einar forward, his hammer swinging. Einar's head was low, his voice silent since his confession by Nordheim's shore. Torvald's eyes stayed on him, anger and betrayal mixing with relief. Gunnar wasn't the traitor, but he was still gone, and the clan's fire was burning, ready to consume them all. Move faster, Torvald growled, his voice rough, his red beard damp with mist. The clan's waiting Einar. They'll want your blood. Einar's eyes flicked up, wide with fear. I did it for Eldfjord, he muttered, his voice weak. Nordheim's too strong. Joining them was our only chance. Torvald's hand clenched on his axe, his voice a snarl. You sold our men's. Lives for silver. 5 are dead because of you. Don't speak of chances. He shoved Einar forward, his heart pounding with the weight of what was coming. In Eldfjord the village was a cauldron of anger. Sigrid stood in the longhouse, her blonde braid tight, her eyes sharp as she faced the clan. Astrid, mother of a fallen warrior, was loud, her grief a blade that cut through the hall. Gunnar's a traitor, she cried, her hands clenched. Torvald's chasing him while Nordheim plans to burn us. Where's our justice? Sigrid raised a hand, her voice steady, but strained. Torvald's coming back, she said. He'll bring the truth. Hold your anger, Astrid, or we'll tear ourselves apart before Nordheim even comes. Bjorn, left to guard the village, stepped forward, his scarred face grim, his axe in hand. The clan's done waiting, Sigrid. If Torvald's soft on Blackfang, we'll find a new chieftain. We need blood, not promises. The crowd roared, their hands on weapons, their trust in Torvald fraying. Sigrid's heart raced, but she stood tall, her voice cutting through the noise. Betray Torvald, and you betray Eldfjord. Nordheim's the enemy, not our chieftain. Wait for him. The clan quieted, but their eyes were hard, their anger a spark ready to ignite. Sigrid turned to the door, praying Torvald would return before the clan's fire burned out of control. Torvald's group reached Eldfjord at dusk, the fjord's waters dark under a gray sky. The village was alive with voices, the square packed with warriors, women, and children, their faces grim. Astrid stood at the front, her eyes red, her knife gleaming. Torvald pushed Einar forward, his hands bound, and raised his voice, loud over the crowd. Hear me, he shouted, his axe raised. This is the traitor, not Gunnar. Einar sold our plans to Nordheim, caused the Skalvik ambush. 5 men died because of him. The clan roared, Astrid's voice sharpest, her knife raised. His blood, she screamed, lunging at Einar, but Torvald caught her arm, his strength holding her back. No, he said, his voice hard. He faces the clan's judgment, not your blade. We do this right, or we're no better than Nordheim. Astrid pulled free, her eyes blazing. My son's dead because of him. You protect traitors, Torvald. I protect Eldfjord, Torvald said, his voice steady. Einar will answer, but so will no. They planned this, paid for it. We prepare for war, not vengeance. The clan murmured, some nodding, others glaring. Bjorn stepped forward, his axe lowered, his voice low. And Gunnar, where's he? You cleared him, but he's still gone. Torvald's jaw tightened, his eyes on the crowd. Gunnar's new traitor. He tried to stop Einar, but he ran, fearing your anger. I'll find him, bring him back. But first, we deal with Einar. The clan gathered in the longhouse that night, the fire high, the air thick with tension. Einar stood in the center, his hands bound, his face pale. Torvald sat at the head, Sigrid beside him, her hand on his, her eyes steady. Astrid stood near, her knife sheathed but her grief raw. Bjorn, Leif, and Hakon flanked Einar, their weapons ready. Speak, Torvald said, his voice cold. Tell the clan what you told me. Einar's voice shook, his eyes on the floor. I spoke to a Nordheim man before Skalvik, he said. He offered silver land. If I told him our plans, I thought, Eldfjord's weak, Nordheim's strong. I thought we'd lose if we fought. So I told them where we'd strike, when Skalvik was ready because of me. Gunnar found out, tried to stop me, but I lied, let him take the blame. The clan roared, Astrid's voice a sob. My son, she cried, her knife drawn, but Sigrid grabbed her, holding her back. Torvald stood, his axe in hand, his voice loud. Einar's guilt is clear. The clan decides his fate. Speak. Voices rose, some calling for death, others for exile. Astrid was loudest, demanding blood. Sigrid leaned close to Torvald, her voice a whisper. Death will unite them, but exile might keep Nordheim guessing. Choose wisely. Torvald nodded, his heart heavy. Exile, he said, his voice cutting through. The noise. Einar leaves Eldfjord, never to return. If he's seen again, any man can take his life. Nordheim's the enemy now. We prepare for war, the clan murmured, some satisfied, others angry. Astrid's face twisted, but she sheathed her knife, her eyes on Einar. You're dead to me, she spat, turning away. Einar was led to the shore, given a small boat, no weapons, no food. The clan watched as he rode into the dark, his figure fading into the fjord's mist. Torvald stood with Sigrid, his axe heavy, his heart torn. Gunnar was innocent, but gone, and the clan was still divided, their trust in Torvald thin. We need Gunnar, Sigrid said, her voice low. Find him, Torvald. He's your brother, and the clan needs to see him cleared. Torvald nodded, his eyes on the fjord. I'll send Leif to track him. But Nordheim's coming. We need to ready the village walls, weapons, men. The clan dispersed, their voices low, their anger turning from Gunnar to Nordheim. Torvald stood by the shore, the wind cold, the oath with Gunnar a faint spark. Einar's betrayal had cost 5 lives, but Nordheim's shadow was larger, and the price of loyalty was rising, ready to burn Eldfjord, if Torvald couldn't unite his clan. Chapter 10. The Battle of the Fjord. The dawn, in Eldfjord, was cold. The fjord's waters dark, and still under a sky of iron clouds. Torvald Ironhand stood by the shore, his axe in hand, his red beard stiff with frost. Einar knelt before him, hands bound, his face pale and bruised, his confession of betraying the clan to Nordheim heavy in the air. The Bjornsson clan gathered, their faces grim. Astrid's eyes red with grief for her son, lost in the Skalvik ambush Einar had caused. Torvald's heart was heavy, the oath with Gunnar Blackfang, brother now lost to the wilds, hunted by Nordheim still, a faint thread in his chest. Sigrid stood beside him, her blonde braid tight, her hand brushing his, her voice a whisper. End this, Torvald. Unite the clan, or Nordheim will burn us all. The clan's voices rose, demanding Einar's blood. Bjorn, his scarred face hard, held his axe ready, while Leif, the archer, watched the horizon, his bow strung. Torvald raised a hand, silencing the crowd, his voice steady. Einar sold us to Nordheim, he said, his eyes on the kneeling man. 5 men died at Skalvik because of him. His life is the price. He lifted his axe, the blade catching the weak light, and Astrid nodded, her knife trembling in her hand. Einar looked up, his eyes hollow. I was wrong, he whispered. Forgive me, Torvald. Torvald's jaw tightened, his axe steady, and with one swift strike, he ended Einar's life, the blade clean through his neck. Blood soaked the frost, and the clan was silent, their anger quenched but their trust still thin. Torvald turned to them, his voice loud. Nordheim's coming. They planned, Skalvik, used Einar to break us. We find Gunnar, we prepare for war, or Eldfjord falls. The clan nodded, their hands on weapons, but Bjorn stepped forward, his voice low. Gunnar's still out there, chieftain. If he's alive, Nordheim's got him, or he's hiding. We can't fight without knowing. Torvald's heart sank, the truth of Gunnar's fate, a shadow. Leif, take 2 men, scout the paths to Nordheim. find any sign of Gunnar. The rest of you, ready the village sharpened blades, mend shields. We'll meet Nordheim on our ground. See, eyes met his, her voice soft. You're doing what you must, but hurry. The clan's holding, but not for long. Days passed, the village a hive of preparation. Women wove nets to block the fjord, men forged spears, and children carried wood for signal fires. Leif returned on the third day, his face grim. Nordheim's moving, he said, his breath short. 3 longships, 50 men, maybe more. They're coming down the fjord fast. No sign of Gunnar, but I found this. He held out a knife, its handle carved with runes. Gunnar's, stained with blood. Torvald's stomach twisted, his hand closing over the knife. He's alive, he said, more hope than certainty, or was. We fight for Eldfjord, for our dead, for Gunnar. He turned to the clan, gathered in the square, their faces set. Nordheim's here. We meet them at the fjord's mouth, where the cliffs narrow. They'll pay for Skalvik, for Einar's betrayal. The clan roared, their axes raised, their fire rekindled. Sigrid organized the women, setting traps along the shore ropes to snag ships, rocks to roll from the cliffs. Torvald led the men to the fjord's edge, where the water was tight between rocky walls, a choke point. They built barricades, sharpened stakes, and waited. The air thick with salt and fear. At dawn, Nordheim's longships appeared, their dragon prows cutting the mist, their oars steady. Jarl Ragnvald stood at the lead ship's helm, his gray beard blowing in the wind, his axe gleaming. Torvald stood on the cliff, his axe raised, his voice a bellow. Ragnvald, you paid for Skalvik's ambush, broke our clan with silver. Face us, or crawl back to Nordheim. Ragnvald's laugh carried over the water, his voice deep. Your clan's finished, Ironhand. Your brother's dead, your men weak. Surrender, and some might live. Torvald's blood roared, his axe trembling. Come and try. He signaled Leif, who loosed arrows from the cliff, their tips flaming, striking the lead ship's sail. Fire caught, men shouted, and the battle began. Nordheim's ships pushed forward, but Sigrid's nets snagged their hulls, slowing them. Rocks rolled from the cliffs, smashing oars, and Torvald's men charged, leaping onto the trapped ships, their axes swinging. Blood sprayed, swords clashed, and the fjord echoed with screams. Torvald fought at the front, his axe cleaving a Nordheim warrior's shield, then his chest. Bjorn was beside him, his axe a blur, while Hakon's hammer crushed helmets, his roars loud. The battle was fierce, the water red with blood. Nordheim's men were many, but the fjord's narrow mouth favored Eldfjord's traps. A second ship caught fire, its men jumping into the icy water, only to be picked off by Leif's arrows. Ragnvald fought on, his axe deadly, his eyes locked. On Torvald you'll die, Ironhand, he shouted, charging across a ship's deck. Torvald met him, axe against axe, the clash ringing in his ears. Ragnvald was strong, older but cunning, his blade fast. Torvald's arm burned, the old Skalvik wound stinging, but he fought. His strength fueled by the clan's dead, by Gunnar's knife, by Sigrid's trust. He ducked a swing, his axe biting Ragnvald's leg, blood spraying. The Jarl staggered, and Torvald struck again, his blade finding Ragnvald's chest. The Nordheim leader fell, his eyes wide, his axe clattering to the deck. The Nordheim men faltered, their leader dead, their ships burning. Torvald's voice roared over the chaos. Flee, or die. Some ran, leaping into the water, others fought on, only to fall to Eldfjord's blades. The battle ended as the sun rose. The fjord a graveyard of broken ships and bodies. Torvald stood on the shore, his axe bloody, his chest heaving. The clan cheered, their fire reborn, but his eyes were on the horizon, on Gunnar's knife in his hand. Nordheim was broken, but Gunnar was still gone, his fate a shadow. Sigrid ran to him, her arms around him, her voice soft. You did it, Torvald, The clan's whole again. He shook his head, his voice low. Not without Gunnar. He's out there. Sigrid. I need to find him. Bjorn approached, his axe stained, his face grim but respectful. You led us well, chieftain. But what of Blackfang? The clan needs to know. Torvald nodded, his hand tight on the knife. We'll find him. Nordheim's beaten, but the truth isn't here. The clan gathered, their eyes on him, their trust hard-won but fragile. The battle was over, but the war wasn't, and Gunnar. Shadow loomed, a spark that could still ignite or heal Fjord's heart. Chapter 11. The Reckoning. The fjord at Fjord was calm, its waters stained red from the battle, littered with broken oars and Nordheim's shattered longships. Torvald Ironhand stood on the rocky shore, his axe heavy with blood, his red beard matted with sweat and frost. The Bjornsson clan gathered around, their faces weary but fierce, their weapons stained from cutting down Jarl Ragnvold and his men. Sigrid stood beside Torvald, her blonde braid loose from the fight, her hand steady as she bound a cut on his arm. The clan was whole again, their fire rekindled by victory, but Torvald's heart was heavy. Gunnar Blackfang's knife, carved with runes and stained with blood, rested in his hand, a reminder that his blood brother was still out there, lost or hunted, and the truth of his loyalty was a shadow yet to be lifted. The sun climbed, weak and pale, casting long shadows over the village. The clan cleared the shore, dragging Nordheim's dead to a pyre, their weapons claimed as trophies. Astrid, her grief softened by Einar's death and the battle's win, helped tend the wounded, her eyes no longer sharp with hate. Bjorn, his scarred face grim but proud, clapped Torvald's shoulder. You led us true, chieftain, he said, his voice rough. Nordheim's broken, but Blackfang's still gone. What now? Torvald's jaw tightened, his eyes on the knife. We find him, he said, his voice low but firm. Gunnar's new traitor. Einar sold us to Skalvik, not him. He's out there, maybe hurt, maybe hiding. We don't rest until he's home. Sigrid hand brushed his, her voice soft. The clan's with you, Torvald, but they're tired. Nordheim's beaten, but their allies might come. Find Gunnar fast, or the clan's fire will turn again. Torvald nodded, his heart torn. The oath with Gunnar blood, mixed under Odin's gaze, was all he had left of his brother. But the clan's trust was fragile, and Nordheim's shadow lingered. He called Leif, the wiry archer, and Hakon, his hammer still bloody. Take 3, men, Torvald said. Search the forests, the hills, the paths, to Nordheim. Find any sign of Gunnar. Bring him back, alive. Leif's eyes narrowed, his bow slung over his shoulder. And if he's with Nordheim still, if he's turned. Torvald's hand tightened on the knife, his voice hard. He hasn't. Einar was the traitor. Find him, Leif. That's an order. The men left at noon, their steps quick, their weapons ready. Torvald stayed in Fjord, helping repair the barricades, his eyes on the north. The village buzzed with workwomen mending nets, men forging new spears, children stacking wood for signal fires. The clan was united, but whispers lingered, questions about Gunnar's absence, his knife, his secrets. That night, the longhouse was warm, the fire high, the clan gathered to eat and drink. Torvald sat at the head, Sigrid beside him, her hand on his. Under the table, the men sang of the battle, their voices loud, but Torvald's thoughts were on Gunnar, his dark eyes, his quick sword, the fear in his voice by the fjord. Had he run to save himself, or to save the clan? The truth was close, but it was a blade, sharp and dangerous. At midnight, a shout broke the quiet. Torvald leaped up, his axe in hand, the clan scrambling. A boy ran into the hall, his face pale. Leif's back, he gasped. He's got someone. Torvald ran to the square, Sigrid at his side, the clan following. Leif stood by the fjord, his bow slung, his face grim. Beside him was Gunnar, bloodied and limping, his hands unbound, but his sword gone. His dark hair was matted, his cloak torn, his eyes hollow, but alive. The clan murmured, their hands on weapons, Astrid's voice rising. "He's back," she said, her tone sharp but unsure. "Is he ours, or Nordheim's?" Torvald stepped forward, his axe lowered, his heart pounding. "Gunnar," he said, his voice steady but raw. "You ran. You left us. Speak, brother, and make it true." Gunnar raised his head, his voice weak but clear. "I didn't betray you, Torvald. Einar sold us to Skalvik, told Nordheim our plans. I followed him, tried to stop him. They caught me, beat me, but I escaped. I've been hiding, waiting to come back." The clan's murmurs grew, some nodding, others glaring. Bjorn stepped forward, his axe in hand. "Why hide? Why not come? To us? You let us think you were a traitor?" Gunnar's eyes met Torvald's pain and truth in them. "I thought you'd kill me, Bjorn. The clan wanted blood. I needed time to prove Einar's guilt, to warn you of Nordheim's plans. They're not done, Torvald. They've got others. They'll come again." Torvald's hand tightened on his axe, the knife in his other hand heavy. "You should have trusted me," he said, his voice breaking. "We're brothers, Gunnar. I'd have fought for you." Gunnar's face softened, his voice a whisper. "I know, Torvald. I was wrong. Judge me now, but let me fight for Fjord." The clan was silent, their eyes on Torvald waiting. Astrid spoke, her voice softer now. "He's not Einar. If he's true, let him prove it. If he's lying, his blood's ours." Torvald nodded, his heart torn but clear. "You're home, Gunnar," he said, cutting the last of the doubt from his voice. "But you face the clan. Tell them everything, Nordheim's plans, Einar's betrayal, all of it. Then you fight with us." Gunnar knelt, his head low. "I'll tell all," he said. "And I'll fight, for Fjord for you." The clan murmured, their anger cooling, their trust in Torvald holding. Sigrid's hand squeezed his, her eyes proud but worried. The longhouse was packed that night, the fire burning high. Gunnar stood, his voice steady, telling of meetings with Nordheim, the silver, the ambush, his own flight to stop them. The clan listened, their hands off their weapons, their fire turning from Gunnar to Nordheim. Torvald stood beside him, his axe at his side, the oath of brothers reborn. Fragile but alive, as dawn broke, Torvald gathered the clan, his voice loud. "Nordheim's coming again, with allies. We've beaten them once, we'll do it again. Gunnar's with us, and Fjord stands together." The clan roared, their axes raised, their fire won. But in the quiet of the night, as Torvald sat with Sigrid, Gunnar's knife in his hand, he felt the weight of what was to come. The reckoning was here, but Nordheim's shadow was long, and the clan's unity was a spark that could fade. The oath held, but the cost of loyalty was high, and the final battle waited, ready to test them all. Chapter 12. The ashes of the dawn over Fjord was pale, the fjord's waters glinting under a sky heavy with clouds. Torvald Ironhand stood on the cliff overlooking the village, his axe at his side, his red beard stiff with frost. The Bjornsson clan bustled below, sharpening blades, mending shields, and stacking wood for signal fires. Gunnar Blackfang stood beside him, his dark hair tied back, his sword newly forged, his eyes steady but shadowed by the days spent hunted and doubted. The clan's fire was united again, fueled by Gunnar's truth and Einar's betrayal, Nordheim's scheming, and the looming threat of their allies. But Torvald's heart was heavy. The oath of brotherhood with Gunnar mended, but scarred, and the cost of their victory at the fjord still lingered in the air, thick as smoke. Sigrid approached, her blonde braid tight, her face calm, but her eyes sharp with worry. "The clan's ready, Torvald," she said, her voice low. "But Nordheim's Skalvik. Maybe others won't wait long. Gunnar's back, but the men still watch him." Torvald nodded, his hand on his axe, Gunnar's blood-stained knife tucked in his belt. They'll trust him when he fights, he said, his voice firm. He's proven himself to me. Nordheim's the enemy now, not Gunnar. Gunnar's voice was quiet, his eyes on the fjord. I'll fight Torvald, for Eldfjord for you. I broke your trust by running. I won't again. Torvald clapped his shoulder, the gesture heavy, but warm. You're my brother, Gunnar. We stand together, or we fall. The oath they'd sworn as boys' blood mixed under Odin's gaze held them. Fragile but alive, a spark in the coming storm. The clan gathered at noon, their faces set, their weapons gleaming. Torvald stood on a rock, his voice carrying over. The wind, Nordheim's beaten, but they're not done, he said. Their allies are coming Skalvik, others. We'll meet them at the fjord's mouth, where we broke Ragnvald. Gunnar fights with us, as one of us. Eldfjord stands as one. The clan roared, their axes raised, Astrid among them, her grief softened by Einar's death and Gunnar's return. Bjorn, his scarred face proud, nodded to Gunnar, a silent truce. Leif, the archer, strung his bow, his eyes on the horizon, while Hakon's hammer rested ready. Sigrid organized the women, setting nets and traps, her voice sharp with purpose. At dusk, Leif's scouts returned, their breath short. 2 ships, one said, his voice low. Skalvik's colors, but Nordheim men aboard. They're close. Coming tonight. Torvald's jaw tightened, his hand on his axe. The fjord's narrow mouth was their strength, but Skalvik's numbers, backed by Nordheim's remnants, were a threat Eldfjord couldn't ignore. The clan moved fast, taking positions. Along the cliffs, nets ready, rocks piled high. Torvald stood at the center, Gunnar at his side, their weapons drawn. The stars were hidden, the night dark, the fjord's waters black as ink. Sigrid lit the signal fires, their flames a beacon, and the clan waited, their breath clouding in. The cold. The ships appeared, their prows low. No dragonheads but Skalvik's red sails clear in the firelight. Men rowed, their oars steady, their shields lined along the hulls. Torvald signaled Leif, who loosed flaming arrows, their tips striking the lead ship's sail. Fire caught, men shouted, and the battle began. The fjord erupted in chaos. Nets snagged. The ship's rocks crashed from the cliffs, smashing oars and men. Torvald led the charge, leaping onto the first ship, his axe swinging, cutting through a warrior's shield, then his arm. Gunnar was beside him, his sword a blur, his face fierce, proving his loyalty with every strike. Bjorn and Hakon fought on the second ship, their weapons heavy, blood spraying as Skalvik men fell. The enemy was fierce, their numbers greater, but Eldfjord's traps held. A Skalvik warrior, tall and scarred, charged Torvald, his spear aimed at his chest. Torvald dodged, his axe cleaving the man's side, but another struck from behind, a sword grazing his shoulder. Gunnar spun, his blade catching the attacker's throat, blood hot on Torvald's face. Together, Gunnar said, his voice steady, and Torvald nodded. Their bond sealed in the fight. The battle raged, the fjord red with blood, the air thick with screams and smoke. Leif's arrows picked off rowers, Sigrid's traps slowed the ships, and the clan's fire burned bright. The second ship caught flame, its men leaping into the icy water, only to be crushed by falling rocks. The Skalvik leader, a wiry man with a braided beard, faced Torvald, his sword fast, his eyes wild. Nordheim paid us well, he spat, his blade clashing with Torvald's axe. Eldfjord's done. Torvald's axe struck, breaking the man's sword, then his chest. Not today, he growled, the leader falling, his blood pooling on the deck. The Skalvik men faltered, their ships burning, their numbers thin. Gunnar fought on, his sword cutting through the last, his face bloodied, but alive. The battle ended. As dawn broke, the fjord a graveyard of broken ships and bodies. The clan stood on the shore, their weapons heavy, their faces weary but proud. Torvald raised his axe, his voice a roar. Fjord stands. The clan cheered. Their fire won. Gunnar among them, his sword raised, his place earned. Sigrid ran to Torvald, her arms around him, her voice soft. You did it, Torvald. The clan's whole, Gunnar's home. She looked at Gunnar, her eyes warm but sharp. Don't run again. Gunnar nodded, his voice low. Never, Sigrid. I'm here. For Fjord, for my brother. He met Torvald's eyes, the oath reborn, stronger now, forged in blood and fire. The clan burned the enemy dead, their pyres lighting the fjord. Torvald stood with Gunnar, the knife returned to his brother, its runes clean now, a symbol of trust. The ashes of Cunning's betrayal, the clan's doubt, the dead at Skalvik drifted into the wind. But Fjord stood strong, its fire unbroken, as night fell. Torvald sat in the longhouse, Sigrid at his side, Gunnar across, the clan singing songs of victory. The fjord was quiet, but Nordheim's allies might return, their threat a shadow. Torvald's hand rested on his axe, his heart full but wary. The oath with Gunnar held. The clan was won, but the cost of loyalty was paid in blood. And the ashes of kin were a reminder peace was fleeting, and the fjord would always call for more.